It's a bit of an unscripted one, so it might be a bit, rocky. Might hit some controlling, might hit some background noises. But I was watching a few videos on Yujiro Hanma and Tekken. This is going to be entirely unedited, so it's just like a bit of a rant. While I play some Gurren Breakblow, one of the best fighting games of all time. Um, and I've been, everyone's known about Baki. It's one of the biggest manga ever. It has more sales than things like Hajime no Ippo, and um, it's it's huge. It's really big, and especially with like the Netflix anime, like a lot of people in the West know about it now. Um, but I think one of the coolest things about Baki is that it's more than meets the eye. I guess is the best way to put it. I'm trying to let my thoughts be collected here so I can, you know, not really focusing on the game. I'm sort of trying to just talk as best as I can. Um, but I was watching a lot of videos, and a lot of people like to convey the idea that Baki is a very, you know, over the top martial arts sort of crazy sort of franchise, and all of there's collaborations with like Kengan Ashura, and Baki's so crazy, and like there's a lot of shit going on, and like what the fuck, um and a lot of people talk about how like the story, it's going to be like some mid like whatever, so like it doesn't matter because it's just cool fights and stuff like that. And I thought it would be the same thing when I got into it, um but it turns out for Baki there's more than there's more than meets the eye. And I feel like I just wanted to talk a little bit about, um not going too crazy into spoilers, but I guess a bit, um about why I think Baki's so good, like just like as a little like short, maybe 5-10 minute video. um and a lot of people like to convey that Baki, well, the one thing that really annoys me about Baki, people like to talk about how it's like primarily this over the top violence, when not really. Like it is over the top, and Baki is very crazy, and like that's kind of like a big selling point for a lot of people. Like you just see people do the craziest shit, and Yujiro Hanma is like the strongest being, and he's doing all this crazy stuff. But there's also some very, I think it undermines what I one of the things I love about Baki is that he uses martial arts as a practitioner myself, and someone who's a very very big fan of so many different martial arts, from the West, from from the East, like the Asias, the Americas, even Brazil in some cases, like like Latin American countries, Southeast Asia, you get the gist. But like the point I'm trying to make is that like there's so much nuance to Baki, um because it's not the hardest story to understand, but there's so much like it's so profound and like beautiful in terms of its messaging. um and I think a lot of people don't forget that. So like, just I'm going into a bit of spoilers here, so I think this is, if you haven't seen Baki, or you're not interested, or you are interested and you don't know what's going to happen, um you shouldn't watch the video here, from this point on, because this is just going into kind of spoiler territory, because I'm just like going off the dome, don't have notes or anything, I'm literally just playing while I talk. um One of the big things about Baki for me, and this is spoilers, is that Yujiro Hanma, and I don't know, maybe there's some secret thing that I'm missing or whatever, but basically, overall, if we look at like the basic idea of Yujiro Hanma, he never loses. Like if we talk about like actual fights that he has, this, that, the third, there's a scene with like a door, but I don't count that. He can't open a door because there's someone stronger than him. I'm talking about like right now, like Yujiro basically never loses or hasn't lost in any way that is seen as severe, or like he has like actually like lost the fight, like he's been defeated. There's some times where like there's some interesting things, but he just doesn't lose. Like that's his whole thing. He's the strongest person, he's the strongest creature, he's the ogre, demon. And what's so endearing about that is that he doesn't need to lose, because that's the point. Like, and I think that's so beautifully profound about Baki, is that in terms of raw strength, Yujiro Hanma beats everyone. He even beats his own son technically. I say technically, but like there's multiple times he beats Baki, his own son. Um, there's like multiple times where Baki will, like in the fight. If we go back to like the Netflix anime, for example, um, there's the fight that they have, outside the hotel. That's like sort of like the final fight, But I don't really want to. It's hard for me to convey the point, but or convey like with like the example. But like it's like outside of a hotel, basically they have a fight. It's the meme one where it's like, oh, Baki's yeah, they're just having dinner or whatever, some crazy shit like that. And what's interesting about that fight is that generally speaking, like, he earns his respect, but like ultimately Baki kind of loses. And like, I don't know if people debate it or not, because I'm not really in the Baki fandom in terms of like, oh, this is what people are saying, because the Baki fandom's very fucking weird. But I love Baki so much. But like, Yujiro always wins. Like, in terms of physicality, in terms of dominating his people, you know, like, he has things with, you know, Trump and Elon, obviously, and that man, and, you know, Jack Hammer's mother, and a bunch of stuff, like, related to that, you know. If I'm just gonna, like, not really talk about it, because I think I'll get, you know, demonetized if I do. But what's important about him always winning is that the point of Baki is that it's not about physical strength. And obviously that's like, oh, it's a very basic message to understand. But it's so endearing to see the amount of love and care that Baki gets from these other people, you know, like his relationship with, you know, the other fighters, and even his father in some degree, like, to some degree. There's a certain level of beauty to that, about like how these people show him respect, that unironically, some of them, like, even though they respect Yujiro because he's so strong, they don't really, like, it's respect, but because he's so strong and because he does all this stuff. But like, someone like, you know, like someone like Katsumi Orochi, right, who he has like this whole thing of like this whole arc of like, with, you know, with Pickle, and there's a thing that has to be said. I don't really know, like, I don't know what the kind of what I want to use is, but you know, Baki and Hanayama, they earn each other's respect through the hatred they have for, you know, Yujiro. Like, there's a whole thing where like he's talking to, you know, in the 2001 anime, for example, when Baki's, you know, like a kid, he's talking to Hanayama, and, you know, they do the fight, and like they earn each other's respect. Then Yujiro comes up and he basically fucks both of them up, and then, you know, it's like there is, you know, or like a relationship I love. You know, one of my favorite characters, and I think one of the most beloved characters, Katsumi Orochi. He's like a good friend of Baki, where like he will like talk, the way he talks to Baki about like after he lost, and the way Baki talks to him after he loses to Pickle, you know, and gets his arm ripped off and all that stuff. It's something that Yujiro will never experience, and that's, you know, it's the establishment of toxic masculinity versus positive masculinity. If, you know, not to be too you know, too politically correct about, like, you know, and that's not to say I'm sort of conveying that wrong, but like, not to be too like, oh yeah, you know, masculinity and what is masculinity, but like, just as like a basic understanding, there is something so amazing about how Baki conveys that message. And another thing that I love about Baki is that it's not just over the top violence, it's a pure love for martial arts. Like, I think Super Eye Patch Wolf has an incredible video on this, that I'll link in the description, probably, where Super Eye Patch Wolf talks about how, you know, because he also loves martial arts, like, you know, I would say as much as me, you know, because I'm like a huge fan, even more in some cases, or for at least from what I understand his videos. And there is something so amazing about how they convey not just martial arts as, you know, the art forms that they have, but also, like, you know, there's a whole thing about like it's an extension of like their person, their soul. It's something that these people will stake their lives on until like the day they die. You know, there's a whole thing about you know, like Orochi, oh sorry, Katsumi Orochi, I should specify, because Dopo Orochi's, you know, the dad, but Dopo-san, you know, with Katsumi, there's a whole thing about him when he loses to Pickle. There's something so amazing about when Dopo looks at him, when he looks at I always forget this guy, I think it's Tokugawa, I always forget his name, the old man, the one who talks Baki, or talks like that, or in the 2001 anime he talks like this, Dopo, the OVA. I'm sure people who like Baki know what I'm talking about. There's something so amazing about when they're talking to him, and he's like, all right, I need to stop this match, I use the tranquilizers, and then Dopo steps in and he's like, no, I'm not gonna let you take my son's honor. Like, this is, or it's been a while since I've seen it, so, or I've seen that part, so it's not something I'm like the most I don't remember word for word, but it's the whole point is like, you know, he stops him because he's like, I don't want you to take my son. Like, this is my son's life. You know, this is our lives. Our lives are martial arts. I'm not gonna let you taint it. Um, and there's something so beautiful about that, about like martial arts being an extension of a soul, because that is originally, at least from my understanding, and you know, I've wrote like university papers on, you know, things like martial arts and like for example, like I wrote a paper on Wude, which is like martial morality, and like how that relates to you know, the current Chinese beliefs. You know, do they actually like involve it in current Chinese beliefs? Do they, you know, XYZ? I'm not gonna go too much detail about that because it's a while ago, but like I really love martial arts, and I think Baki does an incredible job at conveying this through the strength of its people, and also Baki's evolution. Like, there is something so beautiful. One of my favorite parts of Baki is that it's not only portrayed, you know, narratively through what the characters say, how the characters act. You know, Yujiro's committing these atrocities, Baki's learning to be human, and to love and care for people, and to show his emotions, and to not be like his father, and to, you know, be a friend and a loved one, and to care for these people so they can look for him for guidance, or he can look to them for guidance. Like, these people care about him. It's not just that. It's also, and you know, the evolution of his character, or even the fights, in terms of like narrative. But it's also the physicality, you know, of these fights, or even the physical appearance of Baki himself. You know, there's something so profound. Sorry, not profound, but like there's something so like amazing about Baki going from this cocky, like even in the promotional material of the 2001 anime, he's like angry. The 94 OVA is weird because it's sort of like, you know, adapting. I'm solo talking anime because I've only read bits of the manga. I haven't actually read the entire manga, so maybe Baki fans will call me a lapa. I don't read much manga. You know, I'm kind of a child. But there's something so good about, you know, him going from this cocky, like red/orange haired teenager like his father, because even though, you know, in this game his hair is blue/purple, you know, overall he you know, orange hair, in the you know, the anime. And there's something so cool about how like he goes from that to like, I want to be like my father, and then he realized like, wow, my father's a terrible person, and then he starts to adopt his more orange hair, like his you know, mother, who has oh sorry, not orange hair, his brown hair like his mother, and he, you know, he doesn't have orange/red hair anymore. I think that's so beautiful and so cool, because it's like, wow, he's really evolved. Like, this character's really evolving, and it's hard to really convey to people who like don't see it that way, that like, no, try, like, it's not just a mid story. Like, even if you don't like Baki, it's fine, and if you think it's just over the top action, it's fine. But okay, it's kind of fine. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of offensive because it's sort of like it's like sort of a reduction of what you know, the mangaka's doing, and you know, even the directors of the anime, or like the, you know, Netflix. You know, there's the 2001, the 1998 OVA, whatever, or 99, I forgot. But the point I'm trying to make is that I feel like it's sort of a reduction of that, because it's sort of saying like, you know, he made like even this guy, you know, he doesn't just make fighting stuff. Like, he made makeup, or whatever it's called, make upper, I think it's called. You know, which is thing about makeup, and like it's kind of, I feel like it's offensive to him, because like, as an artist myself, you know, I make music. It's sort of like, well, there's nothing deeper to your media. Like, it's just it's a mid story, or an okay story, or it's a you know, it's a decent story, or whatever, and then, you know, it's all about just people going and fighting. It's like, no, but there is something inherently profound about that. Like, there's something more to fighting than there is. That's like the you know, that's like one of the most important things of martial arts. And like, to me, it just feels as though it's a reduction of that, and also it's ignoring like the point of the story. It's just, you know, it's toxic masculinity versus positive masculinity. This character has been seen to dominate these people, and like, just seeing all this talk about him in Tekken 8, and it's like, wow, you know, he's cool, like, he's a fighting guy, like, who cares, like, he just fights people, he does bad things, but like, you know, it's one of those things that's like, it's a fighting anime, so people go and fight, and he should be in Tekken. I'm like, no, but Baki's so cool and so beautiful, and it's one of my favorite media franchises, because it tackles all the things I love about like what it means to be human, what it means to be, you know, maybe a man, even like, in, you know, when you're surrounded by all of this hatred and bloodshed and violence, and even the horror slash respect that you get for having his name. You know, the way people react when he's like, I'm Baki Hanma. Or, you know, there's so many profound characters that are like, wow, like I really like, I'm like, these characters are like so rich and complex and real. Like there's like, I think a great example, like obviously, you know, people like Baki, people like Yujiro, even though Yujiro is not like complex in terms of why he does things, he just does things. You know, he's kind of just an antagonist. You know, there's Katsumi, who's all like, you know, he's so, you know, like his relearning of things, I guess the best way to put it. Sorry, I bumped my table. And for me, like I think one of my favorite characters, for example, is Jack Hammer, because his whole thing of like it's such a realistic reaction for him not to be like the quote unquote good guy, for him not to be like, oh no, I'm gonna keep training, blah blah blah. Like no, he's so destroyed by rage and anger and even guilt for like being who he is in some points, I would say. It's so beautiful. Like it's such a good story, and it uses martial art. You can tell the creator loves martial arts. He loves what he's doing. But yeah, I just wanted to keep it short. I didn't really want to. It's 16 minutes. I feel like I repeated myself a bit, but I really just wanted to make this video, and I'm probably just gonna put it up here. Like I'm gonna just upload it. I'm gonna call like Baki is deeper than you think, and then I'm gonna call it like a response to you know, Yujiro and Tekken 8, something like that. I don't know. It's the common thing where like people are sort of overlooking it because they're like, Baki and Tekken 8, you know, oh, is, you know, Yujiro's this, Yujiro's that, and oh, Yujiro's cool, Yujiro's not cool, and Yujiro did this in the manga. But then the common consensus, that everyone has is that Baki is just sort of just mindless violence, and it's like it's not. It's so beautiful, and I'll link the Super Hypertrophy video in the description because I think people should watch it. But I love Baki so much. I think everyone should watch Baki. I think Baki is for everyone. Or maybe not everyone, but like when I say it's for everyone, I mean it's for like, if you love martial arts, if you in any capacity, if you love characters that are like profound in terms of, you know, Baki's not gonna be like life changing. It's not breaking the mold in terms of here's a character that is like, I don't know, exploring new ground. It's all about, it's just like his self journey, his actualization, his self discovery, and then actualization. You know what I mean? Because he's still like, you know, he started off so young, and Baki I think was like 13, and then, you know, became like 18, 20, something like that. And you know, Baki the manga is still going apparently. I think so. And you know, there's more shit that's happening, but at least the anime, like it's so cool to see this happen. And maybe less so in like the later things, because after, you know, like let's say like the Netflix Baki, like his fight with his dad, where like you know the meme one where like he's, you know, the table outside the hotel. After that, and the introduction of things like Miyamoto Musashi, maybe it might get a bit more shaky for some people, because it will be like, oh, you know, it's not really covering that relationship between Baki and his father anymore, and like his other people. But I feel like there's still so much more to offer about, like, you know, a character like Miyamoto Musashi, like he's so, you know, he has like so much to talk about. But I don't think it's as good as, you know, like the Baki, Yujiro, and Jack, and, you know, but like the point still stands. Like I think it's really good, and I think people just, I don't know. I feel like I was literally watching Main Man Express, I have it open, and I was like, I need background footage. I'm just gonna play this game, just mash while I'm brain off talking. Unscripted, because I was like, I've been thinking about this for a while, and it annoys me that people talk like this about Baki, because I'm like, you're reducing such important messaging, especially in this day and age with things like, you know, looks maxing and red pill and all this, you know, bullshit, that, you know, like that points men to be more aggressive, that points men to, you know, we need to be more like Yujiro and less like Baki. And, you know, the importance of Baki's physicality, I don't know if I'm using the right physicality, but like physical traits. You know, Baki has a smaller frame because he's, you know, he's shorter than Yujiro, he's smaller than Yujiro, but he's more agile, maybe not more agile than Yujiro, but like he's an agile fighter, he's strong. But his whole thing is like, one of the defining features of Baki, you know, not just his hair, but he has a feminine face, a very feminine face, especially compared to Yujiro's and Jack's, because he's like, the whole point is that like even physically Baki is betraying the quote unquote norms of what it means to be a man, yet people look up to him and people want to be his friend, people want to talk to him, and he's going for it. You know what I mean? I guess the best way to put it. And I think that's so beautiful. I think that's so good, especially in this day and age, because, you know, more people need that. And yeah, it really annoyed me when people said it, because like I was watching a video that was talking about like, oh yeah, people are saying this about Tekken, Yujiro and like his inclusion, and then I saw the main man Squeeze video just now, and then he's like, oh, it's just like violence and blah blah blah, and it's sort of just anime manga. It's just like over the top violence. I'm like, it's not though. Like, I understand what you're saying because it is crazy violence and there's a lot of crazy shit, and that's one of my favorite parts of Baki, how crazy it gets. Because like, what the fuck? And I do feel like we need media like that, like Dragon Ball and stuff. But like, there's so much more to Baki, because at the end of the day, even though it's not grounded in realism, it's still realistic, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, there is nothing realistic about him signing a peace treaty with the United States, and Pickle existing, and Mimo and Musashi being brought back. There's nothing really realistic about that. But it's so grounded in terms of, maybe not as much as Garoden, or maybe even Kengan Ashura. I haven't seen Kengan Ashura, but I know a bit about it. Maybe it's not as grounded as that, but there's a whole thing about who Baki is, self-discovery, self-actualization. I'm a big fan of Dopo and his like relationship with his son Katsumi. I'm a big fan of just all these characters. Jackhammer's like his whole relationship with his father, and like how he, and Baki especially, like he's so, I guess I don't know if I'm thinking about it correctly. I've analyzed it correctly because it's been a while, but I don't know if it's like guilt, or I don't know if it's jealousy for Baki, but he like feels so negatively towards Baki, and he blames not just Baki but himself, like I feel like. And if you really look into it, because he was the way he was punching at the heavy back constantly, but he just couldn't do anything. And there's something like I really, and like Baki's training in the forest with the soldiers and like Guy and all that stuff, and like it goes over the top and it gets crazy. But then even in the 2001 anime, when he's fighting Hanayama for the first time, and Hanayama's like blah 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 blah, Baki, you're cool, whatever. I was like, wow, like Yujiro never experiences that. He wins everything out of fear. And even the negatives that Yujiro does, even the bad things that Yujiro does, like for example, doing those things to Elon and Trump, which like or actually a better example would be in terms of like bad, because it doesn't matter if you deem Trump or Elon as bad. I think they're terrible people. I think they're horrific people, and I think irredeemable, if you will. But the act that he's committing is bad, obviously. And I'm talking about things like the random man, because there was a man that he does that act to. If you know what I'm talking about. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And it wasn't as a thing of like oh, he just wants to do it because it's over the top and crazy. It's a sign of power. It's a sign of masculinity. It's a sign of I'm gonna like, this is a very masculine person, but I'm gonna push my dominance over him because I am stronger. I'm better. I'm more powerful. I'm more of a man than you'll ever be. And that's not what Baki's about. That's not what it is. And that's why Baki doesn't do shit like that. That's why Baki, he takes training things from like other people. He does his own stuff, the whole thing with the grasshopper, and shadowboxing himself and other people. And I don't know, I'm going off tangent, and I might be mixing up information, but the point is, Baki's more profound than people say it is, and Baki's deeper than people think it is, and it's so beautiful. And I feel like people don't give it the credit it deserves. And there's a reason why, in my opinion, there has to be a reason why at least it's one of the most popular manga ever created, one of the most popular Japanese graphic novels ever created. 100 million estimated copies, which is a fucking crazy ton. More than Ippo, which is absurd, because people think Ippo is so profound, but Baki isn't. For some reason, even though I love Ippo so much, I think it's one of the greatest anime ever. That's about it. Yeah, I just wanted to rant a little bit because it really annoyed me. And yeah, you should watch Baki if you haven't. There's the first 2 seasons of the anime, and the 2001 anime and the 1990s OVA on YouTube for free to watch. There's both Japanese and English dub, and I believe there's like Portuguese dub, I think, or Spanish dub or something. I definitely recommend an English dub because I think the English dub voice actors are incredible for both Baki 2001, the 1990 anime, and I'll include the Netflix anime because I think Baki's voice actor is incredible in that too, and Dopo Orochi is incredible. I love the English voice actor so much. I love Yujiro's English voice actor. I really like Baki. I love Baki, English Baki especially, because it's so fun, and it's so like they do a great job of conveying the message. Jack Hammer, incredible voice actor in English. But that's beside the point. Anyway, incredible voice actors. That's the video. That's all I want to talk about. It's 25 minutes. It's a bit long. I know people aren't going to really watch it. It's not going to get that many views. Maybe people are going to be like, oh, it's unscripted, so I'm going to dislike, blah, blah, blah. It's fine. I just wanted to get my thoughts out there. I wasn't going to script it. I wasn't going to write a whole script about it. This is why Baki's profound. It's a rant. I'm not going to go into too much detail or, anything like that. I just wanted to rant a bit, maybe overlap my words about like why it's so cool. That's it. You should watch Baki. Watch all the Bakis. It's very easy to know the watch order, or you can read Baki. Doesn't matter. It's incredible. It's one of my favorite anime / manga / things and franchises. It's really good. And also, you should play Grodan Breakboy Festival Twist, the game that's on screen. It's one of the best fighting games of all time. And you can play Zujiro. So yeah.